ilanga lifisha nomsebenzi benzi mningi basebenzi bayavilapha iholo labo liningi ilanga lifisha nomsebenzi benzi mningi basebenzi bayavilapha labo liningi ilanga lifisha nomsebenzi mningi basebenzi bayavilapha iholo labo liliningi umphathi uyabagqugquzela ilanga lifisha nomsebenzi mningi basebenzi bayavilapha iholo labo liliningi umphathi uyabagqugquzela Hayoima, himkotzo Ve'amelocha merubo Ve'apoyanim, atzelim Ve'yasochor habe Uvahabayis doichet ilanga lifisha nomsebenzi mningi basebenzi bayavilapha iholo labo liliningi umphathi uyabagqugquzela so much to do and workers are so lazy the pay is fine shouldn't be mine the boss is pushing like crazy basebenzi kwenzenja ilanga lifisha nomsebenzi benzi muningi basebenzi bayavilapha Ve'apoyanim atzelim Ve'asochor habe Valabayis doichet ilanga lifisha nomsebenzi mningi basebenzi bayavilapha iholo labo liningi gqugquzela
Okay, ladies and gents, we are ready to rock and roll here at our morning shir, Cultivating Character. Today I was asked to talk about Pirkei Avot, ethics of our fathers. What we call this series here at Chabad is Tools for Life. The only thing is that some people tell me they can't see it, which of course is a problem. So for those of us joining us here on Facebook or YouTube, we are sharing it now. I'm sorry you missed the video that we were showing a minute ago. And welcome to this morning's series. You get a taste of South Africa in that beautiful composition by Rabbi Auerbach. It was called Ilanga Lefisha. And this, of course, was the Mishnah we're going to study today. Just to give a quick recap about Pirkei Avot's Ethics of Our Fathers that we study here together. And in fact, after Pesach, we'll be studying it more in depth. But Rabbi Masinter wanted that this is a series we should launch a little bit earlier than Pesach to get people ready for this study that we do together then. And we were talking about it last week, just the idea of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi was the leader of the Jewish people at the time. He's the person responsible for compiling the Mishnah. He is credited with preserving Judaism for all time, because I don't know what we would have today if he didn't compile the Mishnah, if he didn't arrange these teachings and put them together. Because Torah study at the time, it looks like our page is still sharing there, just a moment. So throughout our history, Torah until this point was something that was actually transmitted by tradition, just teacher to student. And this is the time when Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi realized the significant, the importance of turning it into a written form, which is exactly what he did. And although he had a friendship with Anthony Caesar at the time, with other great Roman officials, he was able, through his connections, to bring respite to the Jewish people at the time when it was a difficult and challenging time in our history after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And many of the other challenges that went on. By preserving the teachings, he was able to give us the continuity of Yiddishkeit. And I think this is an important teaching, and I'm going to focus on one particular Mishnah today. So let's look inside. We're going to go into chapter 2, and I'm jumping all the way to Mishnah 15, okay? And some of the texts I put on here for you today. I know we're not going to have a chance to go through all of them. And also we're not going in the order of the Pirkei Avos at this stage. I'm just selecting various Mishnayos to learn. So today we are doing the 15th Mishnah. And let's look at the Mishnah inside together, and then we're going to dissect it and uncover it. And what could we say? Learn this Mishnah together. Okay, so the Mishnah says as follows. Rabbi Tarfon taught, as you just saw in the song, Hayom kotzer v'hamelacha meruba v'hapoalim matzeidim, which means the day is short. Brilliant, eh? The day is short. And these days it's getting shorter, isn't it? Here in South Africa, while the days are getting longer abroad in the Northern Hemisphere, here the days are getting shorter. And in general, we know that all in a day's work, how much can we get done? Well, Hamalacha Meruba, there is a lot that needs to get done, but there's a problem. Hapoalim matzelim. The workers are so lazy. Do you agree? V'hasachar harbe, but the reward is great. Ubala bayis doichek. The boss is pushing, is urging. This is the Mishnah, my friends. Let's analyze it. Let's think about this. One thing I could certainly connect with this Mishnah resonates is the idea of procrastination. Anyone here can relate to procrastination? No, is it just me? I even procrastinated to get today's shiur ready for you. You know, it takes some work, putting the slides together, thinking what I'm going to discuss. And in general, life is just this way. There's so much to do. There's too little time to get it done. But one of the most disastrous parts of it is that we just postpone. There's always things that get in the way. And today, more than ever, we have our distractions. We have plenty of things that get in the way. So I can only talk about me. I'm not talking about you. Every person, if the hat fits, you wear it. Otherwise, you could just tune out. Okay, you could go in one ear out the other. But just to think about procrastination. By the way, I'd love to hear your perspective, whether you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Zoom, wherever you're with us. Feel free, put a comment in the box, talk in the Q&A, or unmute yourself and chime in. But this procrastination, to me, it's a pet peeve. It's one of those things that certainly I know that I struggle with it. Yes, Benzi, go ahead.
Yes, I'm told that the annual general meeting of the Society of Procrastinators has been postponed for another year.
Why another year? Just say tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
My father, of blessed memory, used to give us, when he was in Germany, he picked up a German expression, Margen, Margen, nar nicht heute, sagen alle Falulote. Have you heard that one? Oh, Benzi, you were in the middle. You wanted to say something there?
No, I told that to the CEO of a certain organization who couldn't take a view on something. It went down like a lead balloon.
Yeah, that's procrastination, my friends. And Benzi, you got it right. Tomorrow. I say, why, I was told last week we discussed the idea of delegation because Yisro in the Parsha, we read about how he taught Moshe Rabbeinu not to hoard all the responsibilities to himself, but to learn to delegate. So, I learned that rule. Why put off for tomorrow what you could delegate today? This idea of procrastination, it affects a lot of people. Maybe there are some lucky individuals out there who, for whatever reason, don't procrastinate. And I'm impressed and hats off to you. But to those of you who are like me, I think about this Mishnah and the song you watched about it before in many aspects and areas of life. I'm dealing with my dissertation as an example. No doubt there's some procrastination involved. And then all of a sudden you have that last minute, but for good reason. We have a lot going on in our lives, right? We have good excuses at least. So whether it's a 6-month project that we knew about all along, whether it's that important phone call we have to make, whatever it might be, the bill you have to pay, we unfortunately have this idea of procrastination that many people could relate to. Looks like a few people walked out of the Zoom room. They didn't want to hear about procrastination. Maybe it's not relevant to them. Anyways, one thing about procrastination is the amount of excuses that we come up with in delaying whatever important tasks we need to do. Because there's a part of us that knows that those are just excuses. But we keep on making the excuses. And we might have that little bit of an internal dialogue, right, that we have with ourselves. We might say, well, I still have plenty of time. As Benzi said, the procrastinators conference is only next week, next year, next whenever. Well, what do you got to say about that? We know it's not true because next year's around the corner and next week is coming too soon. And it's not a lot of time, and we have to deal with the issues at hand. Okay, you're right, but it's not that much work, right? I could get it done very, very quickly. What do you say about that? We don't realize sometimes how complex, how challenging the task might be that we have to deal with. All right. But I work very quickly. All right, I'll get working at it fast. I know how to deal. I know how to hurry. I can work very quick. I'm good at it. I'm proficient. Well, what do you have to say? We tend to drag things out sometimes, especially when there are other things to distract you. And these days, it's very easy for us to get distracted with social media, with our phones, with gadgets, with all types of things that come our way. So we have to know to deal with it right away. And then, of course, there's a question about the effort. What's going to happen already if I don't get it done? Which, by the way, is not a bad attitude for life. Sometimes we think that we need to do everything. And then we come to the realization that, for some things in life, we don't need to do everything. I've made that decision with some things in my life personally, and no offense to anybody, but I can't do everything. I'm not Superman. But we have to know that if it's something that's important, that's valuable, that we have to do, that we're meant to do, then procrastination is not going to help us. And then, of course, is the question, does anybody care? Right? It might be important, But who even appreciates the effort, the work, everything I put into it? Which is an excuse as well. I sometimes think about that. To prepare this shir, I could just come up here and you could see my pretty face on the screen. Not too bad to look at. And that's all. But I feel that it's important to prepare slides and to try to make it that it's not just words, that I'm not just showing up here and thinking, what are we going to talk about today? It's important that we prepare. And I know that it's valued and appreciated. And just imagine if I put a little bit more effort into it, how much better it could be. But then, of course, as the Mishnah starts off, Hayom Katzer v'Malach Meruba. The time is short and there's lots to do. So at the end of the day, if we talk to ourselves, and right here, I see myself very clearly, I can talk to myself. The story I told you last week, the Rebbe told Dr. Weinreb, Rabbi Dr. Weinreb, sometimes you have to talk to yourself because only you truly know yourself well enough. And then we could recognize whether it's just excuses or if there's some accuracy to what it is. And we'll have to know if what's motivating us, if we're getting things done in the way we're meant to, or if we're just making up excuses why to delay, why to procrastinate, why to put things off to another time. And of course, at the end of the day, we'll know if we're truly proud or satisfied with what we achieve, with what we get done. So this is something, again, if it's relevant, you can apply it. If not, forget about it. So this, of course, I think this idea is relevant to any aspect of life, whether it's to a job, whether it's to a task, whether it's to schoolwork, for whatever it might be. But we have to remember whatever we do is part of our mission in this world. Why are we here? What are we here for? We're meant, each person is put in this world for a task, for an indispensable mission that no one else can achieve, no one else can accomplish but you. We're all sent into this life with a mission that's entrusted to us by our Creator. We each have our own specific way that we can make this world a better place, a more godly place. And that's why we've come into this world. But there's always that tendency that we have, deal with it later. And that's why we study this Mishnah that reminds us, that perhaps motivates us to overcome those excuses, those things that distract us from achieving our goal, from doing that which we know we have to get done. And that's the message of this simple Mishnah. Rabbi Tarfon's teaching us, he's telling us, we make excuses in life to delay things, to get things done. Well, let's look at the excuses. Firstly, sometimes we say, I have plenty of time, right? I know I'm not taking care of it right now, but there'll be plenty of time to deal with it. How many times do we say next year, next whenever? Says Rabbi Tarfon, don't make up excuses. Hayom Katzer, the Mishnah says the day is short. Some people are granted more years than others. We started off this morning talking about one of our friends, Jaime, passed away. We don't know when our time is going to come. I was talking the other day with somebody who caught coronavirus. This man is healthy. He's the big man in his house. Yet unfortunately, sadly, the corona hit him. He spent 2 weeks in the hospital. This man described to me how difficult that time was. And we just never know. One could be hit young, healthy. You never know. Rabbi Tarfon is teaching us Hayom Katzer, the day is short. We don't know how much time we have. Our physical lifespan is not just the finite number of days that we're given. It's a limited time frame, of course. And we have to make the best of that time. And that's why we learned in a different Mishnah previously that Rabbi Eliezer says, one should do teshuvah the day before their death. An obvious question the sage that he was asked was, how do you know which day you're going to die? If we're given that inkling if we're told when that's going to be, one thing. But we don't know. Said Rabbi Eliezer, that's exactly the point. Because we don't know when that's going to be. It could be tomorrow, it could be in 100 years. Well, we have to make the best of every single day. We don't want to live our life with regrets. So better yet, to sort out, to smooth out those faribbles, to work things out now so we don't have to worry about it later. So that's the first issue Rabbi Tarfon deals with. Hayom Katser, time is short. We had a whole shir about that a few weeks ago about our accountability for time. Another common excuse that we discuss is it's a big job. There's so much, Obviously, I want to accomplish something important in my life. Of course, yes, life is short, but there'll always be an opportunity for me to make my contribution. Maybe I should just lower my expectations. Says Rabbi Tarfon, Amalacha Maruba, the work is much. God didn't send you down into this world for some minor purpose. God had big things in mind for you. Your family needs you. Your friends need you. You have things that you need to do, and only you can do it. You are indispensable. I'll catch up later, right? If life is short and have so much to do, I'll work twice as hard, and guess what? I'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow I'm telling you I'll work harder. Yeah, does that work? What does Rabbi Tarfon say? Hapoalim atzelim, the workers are lazy. I'm not talking about anybody else. The essence of laziness is wastefulness. Our tendency to allow time and opportunities to pass us by, and then we try to catch up. But what did our sages tell us? That if everything God created in this world, God did not create a single thing for no purpose. Every single thing, every day of our lives has a purpose. So every talent we're blessed with, every resource that we were granted, there's a purpose, there's a reason. And if we feed into that laziness, it just creates a cycle of waste, lost opportunities. Why would we want to do that? The Gemara tells us that the Torah tells us, if you forsake one day, I will forsake 2 days. What does this mean? It's a Talmudic statement. It's actually in Tractate Brachas, the very beginning of the Talmud. Says the Gemara, what this means is, the Gemara gives an analogy to explain this concept. 2 people. Think of 2 people in your life traveling together. And one person turns to the other, goodbye, I'm going in my direction. Okay, part ways. After 1 day, says the Gemara, the distance between them is not 1 day's travel, but it's 2 days' travel, even though it's 1 day. Why? Because while one fellow went his way, right, the other one also continued traveling. So now there's 2 days of distance between them. And the same idea the Gemara is telling us is when we drop out of what we need to achieve. The world doesn't come to a halt. The world doesn't stop for us to come back. The world keeps on moving. The world keeps on advancing. Now we have to try twice as much to try to catch up. So let's not make those excuses. Another excuse that's common is, it's not worth the effort. The world got along just fine without me before I was born, and the world will continue to survive after I'm gone. This is something a friend of mine said to me the other day when I called him just to check in, how are things? Who cares, he says to me. Even if I work hard all my life, what could I hope to accomplish already? I'm nothing. Nothing. Says Rabbi Tarfon in this Mishnah, the reward is great. Every soul is born into this world, was born to accomplish something that no one else can achieve. Only you. That's why some people tell me that indispensable word they hear from me all the time. Guess what? You are indispensable. No one else can do it but you. And that's why the Gemara tells us a person, chayav adam lemar, a person's obligated to say, bishvili nivra ha'olam. It sounds narcissistic to say this, but the Gemara says you must remind yourself the world was created for me. I am achieving something that is of enduring significance, that will last forever because only I can do that which I could do. So don't tell yourself nobody cares. Rabbi Tarfon tells us the boss is urging. Let's put the Mishnah back up to remind everyone the words of Rabbi Tarfon here. The boss is urging. Bal habayis dochek. Who's the boss, my friends? My kids think they're my boss. The ultimate boss, the Almighty. The one who created you, the one who created me, the one who created our whole world and entrusted us with a task to achieve. God has invested very much in our work. God is urging us. And of course, Hashem takes pride in everything we do. And if we realize that, we could realize the importance of everything, of every moment. So this, of course, is if we realize how indispensable our work is, and you look at this Mishnah, all of a sudden there's a whole new understanding. Hayom Kat said the day is short. You gotta do. Time is running us by. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. Hamalacha Maruba, the work is plenty. God gave us our task in this world to achieve that no one else can do it. Don't be lazy. Motivate yourself. Motivate those around you. Hasachar harbe, you'll find out and you'll see how great, how vast the reward for this all is. Because Balabais, the Almighty God, Dochek, God has expectations of you. That's why God put you and me here. And with that, let me share with you another Mishnah, which we read actually before we start Pirkei Avos. In this Mishnah, Kol Yisrael Yesh Lam Chelik Le'Olam Haba, every individual one of our people has a share in the world to come. We are told, Shenemar, as the verse in Isaiah says, Ve'amech kulam tzadikim, your people are all righteous. La'olam yirshu oretz, they shall inherit the land forever. Neitzer matai, they are the shoot of my planting. Maseh yadai, the work. Who made you? Who made you? Neitzer matai, the work of God's hands. And God takes tremendous pride in you. And therefore, our Mishnah, just think about it. We said, Balabais dochek, the boss is urging. We have to realize, these are high stakes. God has high expectations of you. And at the same time, it's highly rewarding if we could achieve, if we could accomplish. Might be some stress involved, no doubt. Manakuna matata. So what I wanted to do today, I only prepared a little bit. So I want to look at another interesting medrash, which gives us another picture, another perspective on this Mishnah. And of course, hopefully we could help us with our own vision for life. So let me pick up the text here. Here we go. This is the medrash. I'm going to read it. And in fact, let me just give you the English translation here. Let's analyze it together. Says the Medrash, there are three things that Moshe heard which caused him to recoil. What are they? When Hashem said to him, they shall give the atonement of their soul. In fact, this week's Parsha, this Shabbos in Shul, and I urge you all, if you're going shopping, if you're going anywhere else, then go to Shul, please. We need a minyan every day in Shul, and Shabbos, it's nice to have a minyan too. At our Shul, sometimes we get a stronger minyan during the week because we have business people in Santon Central, but Shabbos, we could struggle more. But anyways, we need everybody. It's important to go to Shul, of course, if it's safe. At our Shul, we have lots of rules, such as when you come in, you make sure to screen everyone, sanitize. We ask everyone to keep distance, cautious, and most important, to be joyous. This week, we don't just read the weekly Parsha of Mishpatim, we also read the Parsha of Shkolim. There's 4 special Parshas we're going to read in the next 4 weeks. And if you want to know the order, there's a good mnemonic for it. The mnemonic is It pays to remember that the cow jumped over the moon. You heard that mnemonic before? It pays to remember the cow jumped over the moon. This week is Parsha Shkalim, which is this verse where God says that every single person should give a half shekel coin. This half shekel will be used as an atonement for each soul. And of course, the funds collected would be used towards the upkeep, the maintenance of the temple, but it was also a census of the Jewish people. The second Parsha we're going to read next week is Zachar. We always read that to remember what Amalek tried to do to destroy us, which was yesterday's discussion about enemies throughout our history. And that's why we don't forget. That's why the slogan of the Holocaust is never to forget, never again. We don't want to allow such things. We've had it throughout our history. Zachar, we remember. It's ingrained in the very fabric of Judaism to remember, never to forget. That's next week's additional reading. The third one is the cow, Parah. We read that before Chodesh Nisan, before the month of Nisan. We're going to read that about the Parah Aduma. Again, it was about atonement, about the red heifer, which we'll discuss more in 2 weeks' time. And then the moon is HaChodesh Hazeh, that is before the month of Nisan. So the one before the month of Nisan, we're going to remember the first month on the Jewish calendar. Of course, it's confusing, the months, how it works, but go back to Monday's shiur where I explained a little bit about that. And of course, in 3 weeks' time, I'll remind you about that as well. So that is the 4 special parshas. Again, this week is Shkalim. Next week is Zachar. The week after is Parah. And the week after that is HaChodesh. And the mnemonic for that, it pays to remember the cow jumped over the moon. I'll send that in a WhatsApp if you're struggling with that. So let's look at this week. This week we read that you should each give an atonement for their soul. Moshe says, who could contribute their life's value? A person may give all that he has for his life, and it still wouldn't suffice. Said Hashem to him, I'm not asking according to my capacity, but rather according to their capacity. So the Medrash explains, so too when God said to him, instruct the children of Israel my offerings, my bread for my fires, which we're going to read on Friday on Rosh Chodesh. There again, Moshe said, who could provide a sufficient offering for Hashem? If we offered all the animals of the field, if we offered all the trees of Lebanon as firewood, would that be sufficient? Is that a contribution we could give? Said God to him, I'm not asking according to my capacity, but rather according to their capacity, according to yours, what you can do. So too, when God said to him, they shall make for me a sanctuary, v'shachanti b'sacham, we're going to read it next week's Parsha. God says, build a sanctuary for me, I will dwell within them. Moshe said, who can make a sanctuary in which God is going to dwell? Is that possible? It says in the verse, the whole heaven and earth, and the heaven of heavens cannot contain you. So we're going to make a sanctuary, a home that's going to contain God? Says God, I'm not asking according to my capacity, but rather according to your capacity. Yes, it's true, the whole world can't contain God's glory. But God is asking of you is a tabernacle made of 20 panels to the south and 20 panels to the north and 8 panels to the east, which of course we're going to read in the coming weeks in the parshas that describe the construction of the Mishkan. And the truth is, there's a great teaching that our sages tell us. If you notice the difference, when it comes to the creation of heaven and earth, the Torah tells us the whole story, the whole narrative is described in some 30 verses at the beginning of Bereshis. Look at the beginning of Genesis. 31 verses, the entire story of the world's creation. Yet, this tabernacle that we built for God, chapters and chapters. From the end of this week's Parsha until the end of the book of Exodus, or Shemos. Then we're going to read the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, which is going to describe in great detail the service of the tabernacle. And then, of course, in Bamidbar and Devarim, in Numbers and Deuteronomy, we're going to have plenty more details about the sanctuary, about this tabernacle that we built for God. But the message to us is, why Bereshis? God is telling us the whole story of the world's creation. So terse, so short, 31 verses. Yet we spend so many chapters and the rest of the Torah describing this home we built for God. Because to tell you the truth, my friends, for God to build a home, for God to create this whole entire vast universe that we have yet to even scratch the surface for us to comprehend, to understand this world. Scientists and archaeologists and every ologist out there is still trying to figure it out. For God to create this world, no big deal. But for us, for you and I, to create a home for God in this world, that's miraculous. That's something that deserves discussion, and that's why the Torah spends so much time to tell us about what each of us could achieve. And that's what this Mishnah is telling us. How much we can achieve in this world, how much we can accomplish. So the Mishnah presents us with an idea of, what we do for the boss. What do we do for the boss? God says what each of us could achieve, what each of us could accomplish is of infinite significance, of value to Hashem. Let me just share with you one more idea that Maimonides teaches that I wanted to share. Well, let's share this idea. And is it on your screen? No? Where did it go? Oh, here we go. Sorry, apologies. Okay, so one more idea. This comes from Maimonides. Let's go. He says, since we know that the reward of the mitzvahs, and the good that we merit for keeping the way of God, that's written in the Torah. What is it? Olam haba, the world to come. Why does it say throughout the Torah, if you obey, you will receive such and such, and if you do not obey, such and such will happen to you, right? We say it every day in the Shema. All the reward that's awaiting for us if we do heed to the call of God, if we do obey and observe the mitzvahs that God tells us, and the reverse, conversely, otherwise. All this, says Rambam, things that are of the present world, such as plenty and hunger, war and peace, sovereignty and subjugation, inhabitancy of the land and exile, success and failure, and all the other promises of the covenant. Says Rambam, the explanation of the matter is as follows. God gave us this Torah. It is a tzchayim hilamachazikim ba. It is a tree of life to those who hold on to it. Whoever fulfills all that is written in the Torah and knows it with a complete knowledge merits thereby the life of the world to come. But God also promised us in the Torah that if we observe it with joy and with good spirit, God will remove from us all the things that may prevent us from fulfilling it, such as, God forbid, dreadful disease and war and hunger and all the other things that we know that distract us from doing that which we need to. And Rambam concludes here, and that he will bestow upon us all the blessings that bolster our hand to observe the Torah, such as abundant food and peace and gold and silver, all the things that will help us to preoccupy ourselves, that we don't have to be preoccupied with the material needs, but that we'll be free to learn the wisdom and observe the commandments by which we will merit the life of the world to come. And here again, we are seeing this idea that Rambam's telling us that we'll have a plenty. So the question I have is, which is it? Are we dealing with a hard-driving boss up there, a supercharged work environment that's so difficult, right? Constant pressure, don't squander a single moment, right? Or is ours a benevolent employer who's providing us with all our amenities, as Rambam describes here, to do our job? Is God pushing us beyond our comfort zone? And perhaps we could explain that there are two versions of life. And let's just look at this Mishnah again that we discussed earlier, okay? The Talmud, we know, consists of 60 volumes, 60 tractates, okay, each devoted to a different area of Torah law. right? So the first tractate is Brachas. Brachas deals with the blessings, the prayers, and all those things. Then you have a tractate that deals with the laws of Shabbos, and we have a tractate that deals with the laws of marriage and purity and impurity, you name it. The 60 chapters, 60 tractates, some much, much longer. But this chapter that we're studying here, this tractate Avos, we're looking at chapter 2 today, does not deal with laws. It doesn't deal with our obligations under Torah law. But rather, here we're talking about something that's called Lifnim Meshura Sadin, which means that which lies beyond the letter of the law. Pirkei Avos describes the life of a person who isn't satisfied with doing what's required, what's obligatory. That's the other tractates. This tractate that we're studying today, Pirkei Avos, it deals with somebody who wants to give it all they got. You go beyond the letter of the law. And that's why the Talmud says, if you want to be a chassid, we at Chabad are chassidim. Chassid means to be pious. You want to be pious? Then study tractate Avos. The word chassid, besides for meaning, a chassid is usually a follower of a Rebbe, but chassid here is pious, a benevolent person. And the Zohar explains it's not just benevolence. What does it mean? Ezehu chassid, what is a chassid? Hamischassid in Briyosa, one who acts, who occupies themselves, who conducts themselves. Hamischassid in Briyosa, one who's benevolent with their creator and the source. A chassid is not satisfied with just meeting their obligations. A chassid wants to bring joy to God, giving beyond myself, beyond what's demanded of me in the other tractates, beyond the letter of the law, beyond what's expected of me. And I think that's an important idea that we could leave with today. The idea that it's not just living in the standard. Some people like a nicer car. You want the luxury. Here we're talking about the way we interact with God and our fellow human beings, not just within the letter of the law, but beyond the letter of the law. And this is a vision of God. Yes, God demands of us. God has demands of us. God puts us in this world, as the Mishnah described, and the time is short. But God also provides us everything that we need to carry out our task in life. God gives us all the tools we need. That's why we call this series Tools for Life. And this is what Rabbi Tarfon's telling us here. You want to be a chassid. You want to be someone who is pious, who's benevolent, who's constantly pushing the envelope to achieve above and beyond the norm. And that's what these tractates, this Pirkei Avos is about, to push ourselves, go beyond the letter of the law. In the chassid's perspective of life, yes, the day is short and there's lots to do. No matter how much we achieved, I might be lazy. In my own estimation, I have to realize there's more I could achieve. Are you satisfied with your bank account, whatever's in it? I mean, it's nice to do that. And in fact, the Mishnah tells us when it comes to material things, we should be satisfied. But spiritually speaking, push ourselves more. Go beyond the letter of the law. Don't just go for the standard. Go for the luxury version of our connection with Hashem. Realize there's a lot more I could achieve. There's a lot more I could accomplish in this world. So this is an important lesson for each of us. And the choice is ours. It's up to us how we're going to live our lives, to go beyond the letter of the law or just to go with the laws. That's the other tractates. But we're studying Avos here. It's about going beyond the letter of the law. It's about pushing ourselves to do more. Right? You could say the standard version is the other tractates. It's what God demands of us. But the Pirkei Avos version of life is what we demand of ourselves. Yes, we read in the previous weeks about how God took our ancestors out of Egypt. Now the task is for us to take Egypt out of ourselves. Now the task is for us to push ourselves beyond that, not to be lazy. And that's what Rabbi Tarfon's saying to us here. not to just live that tranquil life where I'm just sailing along. Pirkei Avos is pushing us. And that's why he says, V'hasachar harbe, at the end of the day, the reward is great. Because when we push ourselves to achieve, when we push ourselves to get things done, then we'll reap great rewards in our own lives. And I think that's an important message and lesson for each of us. Not to say I'm past my sell-by date, not to say I'm old, not to say I can't do, no such thing as I can't. Okay, nothing is impossible. The very word impossible says, I am possible. And that's what we have to just look at in ourselves and say, how will I make sure and realize, live my vision for life? So yes, Hayom Katzer V'Malucha Meruba, the day is short and the work is vast. Torah is endless. It's human nature, though, that we're lazy. And that's why we have to push ourselves to go that extra mile. And the Mishnah teaches, which we learned previously, and I'm sure we'll come by again, that in Talmudic times, when they didn't have devices and ways of studying that we have today, they used to say the norm was to study 100 times. But the chassid was the one who pushed himself to go 101, to study even more, to remind ourselves to go beyond the letter of the law. That's what we want to try to achieve. So how are we going to do that, my friends? Come on. Remember, the work is not done yet. If you're here, you have what to achieve. Every single day, you have work to accomplish, to achieve. Let's do it. Let's do it together. And I just want to take you into a special event that's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. On February 21st, we're going to have a National Day of Prayer. Not National, International Day of Prayer. Because, our fathers wanted it to happen, and their parents wanted it to happen, and their parents wanted it to happen, and now we are about to make it happen. The coming of Mashiach is up to us. The Rebbe would remind us it's not just about anticipating redemption, but we have to precipitate redemption. We have to make it happen. So there's going to be an International Day of Prayer that was called for the 21st of February, 6 p.m. our time here in Johannesburg, as well as in Jerusalem. And we're calling upon each of us to carve that time out and to make that moment when we'll make it happen, because it's up to us and we can make it happen. With that, my friends, any questions? Why is everyone so shy? Okay. Yes?
Rabbi,
Yes.
you say when you're old, but when you're old, you're almost haunted by the how much time have I got left to finish this?
Yeah.
So in a way, that's a little bit depressing because you think, oh, I'll never get through it because I don't know how much time
The
I've
mission
got.
is reminding us that every day is a gift from God, and every day we're here to achieve, to accomplish, and we don't know. God will decide when our time is up. But until then, let's make the most of it. Let's remember what the Mishnah tells us. The day is short and there's a lot to achieve. And guess what? Only you could do that which you were put in this world to do. No one else can do the job for you. Only you could do it. So let's get it done.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll try.
Good. So good to see you all. Sei gesund. And see you tomorrow. Please, God, same time, same place. Until then, carpe diem. Seize every moment and suck the marrow out of life.